Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The makers of Super Shell Gasoline invite you to Shell Chateau, where your host is the world's outstanding entertainer, Al Jolson, with an all-star bill of famous guest stars. We switch you now to Shell Chateau, where you'll be greeted by Al Jolson.
Good evening, friends. Here's where your worry ends, where everyone attends. Good evening, friends. Your name somehow I can't recall right now, but know you all I found. Good evening, friends. Here's Herr Flamm und sein Madame, Monsieur Berry und Cha Cherie. Come a tally-boo, way-boo, way-boo, way-boo. I know you all I do. Good evening, friends. Pull up the chair and turn the lights down low. You read out Shell Chateau. Good evening, friends. We're on the air just once a week, you know. Each week a brand new show for you, my friends. The music starts, the curtain parts, an hour of fun for everyone. Although it's true that I cannot see you, I almost feel I do. Good evening, Thank you, folks, thank you. Here it is, Saturday night again, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to Shell Chateau once more. And I know you're going to enjoy yourself, for tonight, well, we have another great show. For music, we have Victor Young and his officer. You know, I was just telling Victor a few moments ago when I came to Shell Chateau this afternoon, a fellow walked up to me and said, Mr. Jolson, you know something? You look just like Victor Young. Victor turned around to me and said, where is that guy? I'd like to punch him in the nose. I said, too late, Victor, I killed him. For song, we have Miss Maxine Lewis. And what a grand little singer of songs she is. Today, she came to Shell Chateau all dressed up. She'd been to her grandfather's birthday party. And she said, you know, Mr. Jolson, today, my granddaddy is 86 years old. And he has 25 children. Don't you think I ought to notify the newspapers? I said, no, not yet. Why don't you wait till you get the final score? Wait a minute. Now I'm coming to it. For sports, we have Joyce Weatheridge, the greatest woman golfer in the world. And speaking of golf, a great many people would like to know if learning to play golf is like learning to drive a car. Well, all I can say is, when you learn to play golf, you don't hit anything. For drama, we have Boris Karloff, the Frankenstein of the movies, whose horrifying characterizations give you the chills. I'm going to let you know a little secret now. Before Victor Young became a band leader, he was a villain, too. He used to lead women on and then leave them in the dark. He was an usher at the Paramount. For comedy, we have the best, Georgie Jessel, one of the few actors whose heart is still in the theater. Yes, and he's among the very few who still have high hopes that the theater will come back in its own again. Funny thing, the other day I went up to Georgie's ranch, and what do you think he was doing? He was crossing homing pigeons with parrots. And I said, Georgie, what's the idea? Isn't it silly to cross homing pigeon with parrots? He said, listen, if a pigeon gets lost, at least he can ask his way home. Some time ago, ladies and gentlemen, I sang a song that had to do with the summertime. And since the weather here in Los Angeles is hot, and the nights are full of romance, I think it's no more than fitting that I sing the song again. The title is Coney Island. Shell out, Victor. Every summer, we go down to Deauville by the sea, where one can rub his shoulders with a king. St. Moritz in wintertime, that's the place to be. And then to Paris in the spring, where one can have his lip all fling. Though Normandy is lovely in November, somehow it leaves you nothing to remember. I can't forget the night I met you down at Coney Island. Gee, I was proud you picked me from the crowd at Coney Island. And very soon I proved to you that my intentions weren't phony. It ended in a matrimony. And now we're eating caviar instead of macaroni. But I recall those picnic lunches of bologna with a smile. I guess I'm still a hick, 'cause I still get a kick just loving you while shoving through the crowded pony aisle. I can't forget the night I met you down at Coney Island. Gee, I was proud you picked me from the crowd at Coney Island. And very soon I proved to you that my intentions weren't phony. You landed in a macaroni. And now we're eating caviar instead of macaroni. But I recall those picnic lunches of bologna with a smile. I guess I'm still a hick, 'cause I still get a kick just loving you while shoving through the crowd at Coney Island. Ladies and gentlemen, our first guest in Chateau tonight is a golfer. Of course, we've had golfers in Chateau before this, and good ones, too. But tonight we're presenting undoubtedly the greatest golfer that ever lived. But wait a minute. When I say the greatest golfer that ever lived, that isn't my idea. I heard Bobby Jones say so. I've heard all the big golfers agree that the finest player of all time is a girl, and a very feminine one, too. How does that make you feel, you big, strong men? Her name is Joyce Weathered. She's made 3 comebacks. She quit competitive golf in 1925 and came back to win the British Open in 1929. She came back again in 1932 to beat Glenna Collette in the international matches. And now, after a layoff of 2.5 years, she's come back again in the most brilliant series of exhibition matches a woman has ever played. And so I'm not only pleased but proud to welcome her to Chateau tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Joyce Weathered.
Jolson. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Now, Joyce, don't be nervous. Just imagine you're playing a match. But tell me one thing, Joyce. How have you been shooting over here?
I beg your pardon?
Oh, that's an American phrase, shooting. I mean, what sort of scores have you been making in your exhibition matches?
Oh, I've had an average of about 77.
77. And that's all been on regular championship courses, hasn't it? What's the best score, for instance, you made over here?
Well, I got 170 on a course in Pittsfield, Vermont.
Pittsfield, Vermont? You've got your states mixed. You mean Massachusetts.
Well, that's right, Massachusetts. But that is the course I could cover. I think 70 is far, though.
Well, would you say you were playing as well as you played in 1929 when you beat Glenna Collette?
Yes, I think so. I've made some of my latest scores since then. What I can't tell, of course, is whether or not I've still got the competitive temperament I used to have.
Oh, you mean your fighting spirit?
Yes. In 1929, I always knew I could suffer puttering.
I beg your pardon?
I could always get the ball in the hole.
Oh, I didn't know. Suffer putt. Well, anyway. But, folks, I must tell you one funny thing about Joyce. She played golf from the time she was 8 years old. She used to play with her brother, Roger Weathered, who became the British amateur champion. But she never liked the game until she was 17. At least, that is what I've heard. Is that right, Joyce?
Yes. When I was about 17, I suddenly got quite keen.
You got keen. In our language, folks, that means she got hot. Joyce, look, when you were 18, you played in your first tournament, did you?
Yes, the women's first championship.
That's the what you call the only open to English women, isn't it?
That's right.
Well, tell us about that first tournament, Joyce.
Well, I was terribly lucky because I wasn't very good then. But in that 1 week, I started to play much better than I ever played in my life. I really beat quite a lot of good players. And in the last round, I met Cecil Leach, the champion. It was a 36-hole match, and after the first 18, I was 4 down. After lunch, I lost 2 more.
6 down and 16 to go?
That's right. And then I won a couple of holes, and at the 27th, I was 4 down.
4 down starting the last 9.
Yes. Then I got 4 threes in a row, and Miss Leach began to crack a little.
4 threes in a row. It's a wonder Miss Leach didn't bust wide open. Go on, Joyce. I'm interested. 4 threes have got me excited.
Well, anyway, those 4 threes made it all even on the 13th green. We halved the next 2, and I won the 16th. So I was 1 up with 2 to play. On the 17th, a long hole of a bunker in front of the green, and a railway track along the side of it. Cecil tried to get on in two with a broadly, and she landed in a bunker. It took 2 to get out of the bunker, plus 6 on the whole. I'd been playing it safe and was on in 3. I had a putt of about 30 feet, and just as I stopped the ball, an express train roared past right behind me.
An express train? Well, didn't that bother you?
No, I never even heard it. They tell me about it afterwards.
Well, what about the putt?
It stopped 6 inches from the top, and Cecil gave me the net.
Folks, that's what you call concentration. Of course, I wasn't lucky enough to see that match, but I do remember your thrilling comeback in 1929 Open when you played Glenna Collette in that final round. Tell about that match, Joyce.
Well, Glenna was simply magnificent. On the first 9, she went out in 34, while I was taking 39. I was 3 putting. And the Scotch girl, we were getting frightfully gloomy to see the American player 5 up. But on the 12th, Glenna missed a 3-foot putt, and that helped me no end. I got 3 holes back coming in, so I was only 2 down at the end of the first 18.
Well, what happened in the afternoon?
Well, at the end of the first 9, I was caught up. And then we had the most frightful struggle all the way in. As Glenna got 2 trees running, and at the 15th tree, I was only 2 up. Glenna was on the green in 2, and I was on in 3. I saw my lead vanishing, but I sank an 18-foot putt for half, the luckiest putt I've ever made. Then we halved the 16th, and I started the 17th 2 up.
2 up and 2 to play. What a match. Go on, Joyce.
Do you know the 17th green at St. Andrews?
The 17th green at St. Andrews? I think my father was a caddy there. I'm not sure. No, I don't know it, but I heard it's a Lulu.
Yes, it's a Lulu.
It's a Lulu.
It's the most terrifying green ever made, I think. It's a long, narrow green and a very long hole. And Glenna played the 17th badly. She didn't get on in 3, and I did, just barely on the corner of it. But it was all over.
So you won on the 35th green. I wish I'd seen that match, but Joyce, I understand you have a tough match tomorrow at the Wilshire Country Club.
Well, it should be quite interesting, I hope. Willie Hunter and Charlie Guest are going to play against Olin Dutra and myself.
You and Dutra? Why, Joyce, it's in the bag.
In the bag?
Well, by that I mean you can't lose. We had Olin Dutra here in Chateau, so you and Olin are really the Chateau team.
Well, Mr. Jolson, I shall certainly do my best for the honor of dear old Chateau.
That's the spirit, Joyce. Stuff those butts for good old Chateau. You know, ladies and gentlemen, out here in California, we have very unusual weather. In the summertime, it never rains. The other night, it poured. It was during that rainstorm that Jack Stanton was calling on Peggy Gardner, and he was just about to go home. So Mrs. Gardner said, Jack, you can't go home in this rain. You'd better sleep here tonight in the spare bedroom. Jack said, fine. But when Peggy and Miss Gardner came downstairs from making the bed a few moments later, Jack was gone. Well, sir, a quarter of an hour later, he came rushing back to the house soaking wet. Mrs. Gardner said, why, Jack, where have you been? He said, I went home for my pajamas. And now the kids are going to sing We Will Always Be Sweethearts, Jack Stanton and Peggy Gardner.
I'm thankful to fate that I found a mate whose love is as great as my love.
I'm certain that you want no one but me, for you are the one boy that I love.
True love, day after day we will always be sweethearts, the same as the day we began.
Do what you may, we will always be sweethearts, for you are my boy and my man.
She kisses me and my lips are so willing.
But we both agree that each time is more thrilling.
And so I can say we will always be sweethearts, the same as the day we began. Day after day we will always be the same as the day we began. Do what you may, and my lips are so willing.
But we both agree that this time is not thrilling.
Oh, I can say we will always be sweethearts, the same as the day